Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Another week means another edition of your new favorite sports podcast here on the beautiful interwebs, aka my Twitter and the beautiful Bunsen Bruises YouTube channel. Of course, it is your favorite trio of gentlemen here, the sports agents of chaos, once again with another episode this week/weekend, because really that's the only time we get to record. Here to bring you all the chaos that has been happening in the sports world, predominantly the NFL. We may go into other sports from time to time, but we are predominantly a football-speaking show. And we are here to definitely talk plenty of chaos because, 2/3 of this podcast being Jets fans, we get to talk about the sheer and utter chaos. It feels like the world is ending. The four horsemen of the apocalypse can come out of nowhere at any point because, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in God knows how long, and one of these gentlemen can definitely give context to how long it's been. The Jets had a slam dunk of a draft weekend, apparently. Everyone is praising them. I've rarely seen anyone really give heavy critique when it comes to any of the Jets selections, and that's a big deal. We're going to get into real Jets talk. If you want analysis, winners and losers, and talk about the draft, aside from the Jets, you got to go back to last week's episode. So make sure you go back, watch last week. We gave our winners, we gave our losers, we gave our overall thoughts on the draft. If you want more teams and more perspectives, you got to go there. Specifically this week, we got the Jets fans here. Of course, they're here every single week. We're going to talk about mainly from the Jets perspective and what this draft could really mean for them, aside from just, good draft grades recently. But before, and of course, as well, like we talked about last week, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks that were drafted in last week's draft, how several of them ended up falling out of the first round and even out of the second round, and what the future could hold for some of those young quarterbacks, one or two of them in particular. Bailey Zappi Hall of Fame. But aside from that, ladies and gentlemen, that's what's on the docket for the rest of the episode. But the beginning here, this might be one of the most electric beginnings to an episode that we will have, I think yet. So let me not waste any more time. First, the man, it says in the name himself, Podfather, and he is ready. He's going to start off the show, just in an incendiary manner in a couple of moments here. Podfather Rick. Rick, how you doing?
The ASMR thing that keeps happening in this podcast just keeps throwing me for a loop. I really don't understand it. I'm not really a big ASMR fan. I mean, maybe I'll just start, chewing on like things and turn the camera off and just do a slow and I'm chewing granola bars right now. Do like an NPR style sort of thing. No, but other than that, I'm good. I just returned from a quick jaunt to the South Carolina Low Country. I was in Charleston for a few days. Nice little golf outing, nice little time there, first time in South Carolina, and I'm excited to be back here. But had me thinking, and I was telling you this off the air, if we ever do get to a point where we can do like live hits and lecture like in the live shows from other areas, we should go to Charleston and do a live show from Charleston. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
What a time that would be. First off, if we do end up getting to that point, I think it would just be electric. And if we had a live audience as well, I think it would be even more funnier. By the way, the reason for the whole ASMR shtick is because, we got to get as many other groups of people to watch the show as we can, because trust me, we're probably going to lose a fan base or two, within the coming weeks and what we're going to say about certain teams. This episode in particular, from what I've been told. But before we get into a segment of the viewing audience losing segment, we have the other third of our triumvirate here. He brings it, ladies and gentlemen, every single week, and he's got some interesting games for us to play this week. Of course, per usual, it is our man, Zuckman/Zucktails/ the better Zucker, the better man with Zucker in his name, as last name, Justin. My brother, how you doing?
How many Zuckers do you know, Jerk?
Well, there's only one more that I know, not personally, but there is one more out there, and you are clear.
I know one from Animal Crossing, but don't ask me how I know that. But yeah,
it's not me.
Imagine Justin has a burner Animal Crossing account.
Of course he does. Why not?
Funny thing,
everything.
Yes. I was about to say, Justin doesn't waste time on the real social media. He just has burner accounts of everything else, like Steam and Animal Crossing and anything that has to do with gaming.
Where do you think we're getting all our views, Jerk?
Yep. Hey, you know what? I'll take
Discord. Clearly, Discord is where we're getting our views from. I don't even know what Discord even is, but we're getting them from there too.
Absolutely. Hey, we welcome views from anybody and everybody that wants to watch the just utter chaos that this show ends up breaking down into on a week-by-week basis. And, speaking of which, I've talked a little bit about it. I'm not going to waste any more time, ladies and gentlemen. This has quickly become, honestly, I would argue, one of the top two segments on the show. It's 1A, 1B with another one that we have later on. We're going to go with Rick's review/rant of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Normally, it is just Rick's review, but some of these reviews are going to turn into rants. And ladies and gentlemen of the viewing audience, do not turn away because au contraire, mon frere, if you think he's just going to rant and be, old man on the lawn telling you to just get away. No. Rick is highly entertaining. First of all, he's not that old. This man is, glistening in the sun. This man is, in the prime of his life. But really, his rants are just going to probably be the highlight of your weekend. I know they are the highlight of me and Justin's weekend. So, Rick, I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to mute myself. The floor is all yours. Please give us this week's review/rant.
I'd like to start off, though, with a quick little retraction, if I may. The tiger that mauled Roy Horn died a long time ago, so I apologize for bringing him up as someone who could have made a draft pick in last week's NFL draft.
The tiger community was not happy with you for bringing
the tiger community, the magician community, the stumble upon community, whatever it was. We're going to lose a good section of our New England viewing audience here when I say this, and this is... It pains me to say this as growing up from New York, but Duncan sucks. Very simple. Duncan sucks, and I'll tell you why in further detail. So where I currently live, there's a Duncan nearby, and whatever if you want to get a convenience donut or whatnot, fine. About a week ago, when I was in Brooklyn, we had a little get together during one of our baseball games, and we had Tim Hortons Munchkins called Timbits. First of all, Timbits. It's a weird name, but it's Canadian, so I'll let them roll with it. Whatever. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, all that fun stuff, whatever. But here's what I'll say. It made me really understand and realize that Dunkin' is horrible. Terrible customer service. The variety of the donuts fine, but the donuts are probably sitting there for 6 to 8 hours, and they're just not fresh. The Timbits Munchkins were cakier. They were a much more pleasant experience. And there's actually an underrated flavor that I highly recommend if you're going for Tim Hortons, Timbits, or even donuts. The blueberry munchkin or donut with the sour cream glaze. You don't really think about sour cream in that type of aspect, but it was amazing. So good. And I'll put a finer point on it too. Duck Donuts is a regional, upstate, but they have a spot down here now in Garden City Park, so Justin, not far from you and me. Always warm, always fresh. You bring them home from the store. They're still fresh half an hour later. They're still good a day later. Can't say that about Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts do not have a good shelf life. And it's very simply put, Dunkin' just sucks. They just suck. And I'm sorry, this is very territorial. My New England brethren are going to hate me for it because that's all they do. They're going to say, fight me. Why you would say Dunkin' sucks? Fight me on this. I'm telling you, the reason for it is because the freshness of Tim Hortons and Duck Donuts just beats Dunkin', bar none. The combinations and the flavorings, just bar none, beat it. And the fact of the matter is, if I have to go out and search for something, that means to me it's a diamond in the rough. If I have to just turn my head and find a Dunkin' on the street corner, why even bother at that point? It's like I said, it's like turning to your friend and saying, hey, who do you want to draft this week? And they say, oh, Bailey Zappi. Yeah, okay, great, awesome. That's really, really good. Thanks, great, awesome. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's a more subdued rant, obviously, but the truth behind it is that as a donut connoisseur, Dunkin' is just terrible. And I may find myself in a really hot water with some of my New England brethren and also the Dunkin' down the street. Sorry, Mohammed, but it's just the fact of the matter is, put out good products. You put out good products, the people will come. You put out terrible products, people will still come, but they're not really enjoying themselves. So, I mean, which actually speaks to a lot about how, the New York Mets were for a very long time until, recently when you put out a terrible product, they still come, but they're not enjoying themselves. Now they're enjoying themselves. So, Mets fans, we're enjoying themselves. So that's good. That's good. That's good.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just so you all are aware, we don't always get what the topic is, which really just makes it more fun. So you get me and Justin's genuine reaction.
I didn't see this coming at all.
I didn't see this coming. He just forget just New England, Rick. I think the entirety of the Northeast are going to disagree with you on this one. They're gonna say, they're gonna ask you to fight them. I will say though, I am with you on one thing. To me, Tim Horton better than Dunkin'. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, again, you know what it is too. It's the difference in the preparation. And I learned this too from when I was in Montreal for a little bit. There was an ice cream counter that my wife and I went to, and it was amazing. So good. But they were literally pouring in milk as they were churning in the ice cream. So it was fresh, creamy, clean. I couldn't eat Carvel for 6 months afterwards. It ruined ice cream for me because of how good it was and how much I wanted to just move to Canada because of how good the ice cream was. The ice cream, the steak, the pasta, but not the snow tubing, though. We're not going to talk about the snow tubing. There was some bad incidents there in snow tubing. But again, it's the same thing. Like Canada just does it differently. And it's also the same thing, too, with Coca-Cola. Mexican Coca-Cola with the cane sugar in it, miles better than regular Coca-Cola because of the natural sugar versus the high fructose and the artificial sugar. Like literally, if you taste the difference, you'll never want to go back to regular stuff. And that's the problem. So this is really more of a rant about America as a whole. Get back to fresh ingredients. Get back to doing things the right way. I know it's more expensive, but literally, this is why we're all obese in the United States of America, because of all the caffeine and all of the sugar that's artificial and not good for you. Dunkin' sucks.
Wow. Really, Rick's just looking out for everyone's health, Justin. I don't think you could argue with that now. I think
I have to prepare more for my shows.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not going to be super health conscious, so now you're not going to see me next week eating like a stick of celery with peanut butter on the show because that would just be weird. But I'm just saying,
if you see you eating Tim Hortons.
that would be
no. I mean, the closest one to me is on the Bell Parkway, so God forbid I have to go back there and grab it and then try and sing around.
Rick, it's been 10 minutes of you pumping Tim Hortons. If you got to drive out there, I want to see Tim Hortons out on this next show. We get that sponsorship dollar, man.
No. So see, there is another one, but this one's a little more deadly for me. It's one in Westbury, which is next to the Chick-fil-A. So I mean,
temptation.
The Chick-fil-A lemonade and the Tim Hortons Timbits. My personal trainer is going to be mad at me for mentioning all this food, but that's the nature of the business that we live in. You gotta eat at certain points. So that's how it goes.
Hey, Rick, even if you just get a cup or something that just has Tim Hortons on it and you just show it, like just have it on the show. Shameless advertising. We are here for the shameless plugs and the sponsors and the advertising.
Rick has drawn a line in the sand and Duncan is on the wrong side.
Yeah.
That's right. Get off here, bad side of town, Duncan. Get out of here.
Exactly.
We have the higher ground. The Tim Hortons crew is the higher ground now.
Exactly.
May the fourth be with all of you, by the way.
And yes. And happy early Mother's Day, actually, by the way. This is the Mother's Day episode.
To all the mothers on the podcast here, yes, happy Mother's Day to all of us. Seriously.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. This is delivered as per usual. Rick is always going to deliver on this. I'm never going to be convinced that he doesn't deliver in some way, shape, or form. So thank you once again, Rick. Justin, you said it yourself. I think you have come prepared, Justin, but you better knock this one out the park here because that's tough to follow up.
I don't know. I think we got to start our own, Duncan versus Tim Hortons now podcast and see, which side the fan base is truly on. It's like a special holiday episode almost.
So a pro Dunkin' Donuts podcast versus a pro Tim Horton.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but then you have the Krispy Kreme and the Starbucks, and then there's all the little like independent chains, the hipster chain coffee chains that are all independent and all that stuff. It's just.
How much time did you spend preparing for this rant, Rick?
Like 10 minutes.
Like baking on for years now. Like you have your. Next week's reviews, I need a list of the best donut places. Top 10.
I think he could give that now. I think there's a chance he could give it now.
I mean, I could,
but we need that true Rick effort.
I need to do a little more research into this. And by that, I mean eating donuts. So, yes.
So ladies and gentlemen,
best homework assignment you ever got. Yeah,
that's true. It's very true.
So, ladies and gentlemen, check back in a future episode of the show. We will get Rick's top 10 donut places to get a donut from. That's going to bring the people back. I think we just kept the New England audience that Rick has pushed away because they want to know what his top 10 is now.
That is true, and I have to really gauge myself here because I'm thinking of like actual donut places, not just like farm stands that have apple cider donuts, because those are amazing, but they don't count. Those
are in a class of all its own. Apple cider donuts.
If I have to go and pick a pumpkin to get an apple cider donut, you don't count.
Beautiful.
Oh,
There's nothing better to say than just Rick is a gem, and this show. The show is for all of us, but really, like, if Rick becomes a superstar of this, like Justin, I think we did a job well done. Like, he's becoming a star.
Crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed, and for that future Tim Horton sponsorship, by the way. So now moving on from that, in the beautiful review/rant of the week, we are going to another one of our usual weekly segments here, and of course we have Justin's trivia. But I've heard from sources, according to my sources, that we have a little bit more than just trivia this week. But I will let the man himself go with that. So Justin, the floor is now yours. Take us into our games this week.
All right, so we'll start off with the trivia question, and since we've had a couple weeks off, I had a few lined up. Wasn't sure where I was going to go with it, but let's start with the one I came up with first, and that is going to be pertaining to running backs.
Ooh.
Now, a little under the radar, officially this offseason, we did have Frank Gore's retirement. Yes,
that's right.
The end of an era.
Don't forget to Bilal Powell's retirement as well. Yes, equally. The two Jet superstars right there. When you think Frank Gore, you think Jets with Bilal Powell. Yeah. Bilal be damned.
Anyways, so it got me thinking. And with Frank Gore now out of the league, I'm assuming we're waiting on an impending Adrian Peterson retirement as well. So with those two guys done, I'm going to give you each one guess because it's only a one guy thing.
Of course.
Who is the NFL all-time leading rusher active today?
So not including Adrian Peterson, who is the
only active players. Yeah, well, I'm assuming that his career is probably done at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to assume. Sorry, Adrian, if you're coming back, I hope you do. It'd be
I also think he's
an
not
electric
on a team
player,
right now, so technically
he's not currently on a team.
No.
So, of the active NFL running backs, who is the all-time leading rusher?
This is a good one. This is a dang good one, Rick. So good that Justin's power went out for a moment, so we'll get him back.
Yeah,
on.
we lost him.
The question was so good, his connection couldn't handle it, honestly. All right, well, so we got to think this through, Rick. So he said it. So no more Frank Gore. Adrian Peterson, of course, he's out.
Yeah.
I think so. We got to go back. We got to go in the way back machine in terms of like guys that have been in the league for a while here. I think I have a guess or two in my mind, but let's talk this out a little bit.
What are you thinking? What are you thinking in your head? Because I've got a few that I'm thinking of.
So the first guy that comes to my mind, and it's kind of funny that he mentioned AP because this guy was a teammate for a very brief period of time with Adrian Peterson. But I think Mark Ingram would have an opportunity to potentially be the leading rusher. Now, I know he wasn't necessarily always a rushing first running back. Like the first couple of years in the league, I think it was kind of dry in that sense. But came on recently, especially in the latter parts of his Saints career, had a good first season and a half in Baltimore. I think there's a case. I'm not saying he is he's not my most confident guess, but I think he's been in the league for a decade now. I gotta feel so he has to have a chance to be up there in terms of the leading rushers.
I think that's a very good guess. I mean, he was a guy that started off in that New Orleans offense and was very prolific offensive styling. So that's a solid enough guess, I think. Yeah, I mean, I believe, where did he go after New Orleans? Was he in Miami for a bit, or where was he after New Orleans?
Baltimore, I know.
Baltimore.
That. And
okay.
I don't know if because he went back to the Saints, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember.
Yes, he did.
I don't remember what the stop was, if there even was one between Baltimore and New Orleans. That he may have just went back to New Orleans right after Baltimore cut him.
So that's the thing. A good guess. I'm thinking about a surprise potentially, just because of longevity purposes. Alfred Morris could be up there too. I mean, I don't think that he'll be at that level of an Ingram, but I mean, he's basically a guy that has been in the league for a considerable amount of time, really came on strong, but maybe he hasn't had the yardage towards the end of his career or towards where we are now. But I mean, he's been able to get traction here and there. So, he's a guy that could be a dark horse, potentially outside pick, I would think. Might be a good shot.
So this guy came in the league a little bit after those two, but he's been a pretty prolific rusher. He has a couple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Funny enough, he's actually, if you listen to many episodes of the podcast now, he's been brought up in previous episodes because he's actually still a free agent and he's not going to retire. So that's why he is in this combo, unlike Adrian Peterson. But Melvin Gordon, he's had a couple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. And I think the thing is, both Morris and my thing with Morris and Mark Ingram, I apologize if I said Melvin before I meant Mark. like Mark Ingram, I want to say has 2 1,000-yard rushing seasons at most, maybe close to a third. And Alfred Morris, like you said, at the beginning of his career, dynamite. But
Yeah.
those last couple of years, especially really, I think after his third season, it kind of really started to tail off for him. I think there's an outside chance it could be Melvin Gordon because he had a couple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. His first year in Denver was really good. I want to say he got relatively close to 1K. Now, he fell off a little bit last season, in part because of injury and in part because Javonte Williams, Denver said he's going to be the number one guy. I gotta think like Gordon has a real shot here.
I think so too. And I mean, maybe there's a real question here. Are we going longevity or are we going for, explosiveness? Because in the longevity side, I think you're talking about Mark Ingram, Alfred Morris, Melvin Gordon. But in explosiveness, I can give you 2 names: Zeke Elliott and Derrick Henry.
Right. Oh, especially Henry the last couple of years.
So I don't think it's Henry because I believe that he lost so much time this year due to injury that if he had played a full season, he would absolutely have been up there. But I feel like because of all the time that he lost to injury this year, it's not him. But he's probably close.
And also, was it his rookie or sophomore season where it's like he was good, but he wasn't like it was nowhere near what he became? Like I want to say one of the early seasons in his career, he didn't get a lot of touches in the offense. Maybe just my memory not remembering it properly.
No, I think I feel like you're correct in that sense. But again, I feel like it's also a matter of, when you come into the league right away, you have this explosive running style. It doesn't translate well in your first year or first 2 years to the NFL because, you're not running behind the same line for 4 years that you've been running behind in college or 3 years. You're running behind what could be a patchwork line because you've had injuries in preseason training camp and whatnot. And so I feel like that kind of hurt him a little bit. And also, again, my bias is my bias, but Alabama doesn't really produce, great running backs. We're talking about 2 of them. So,
Yeah, that's the funny thing. So I think those 5 are our strongest guesses. I'm trying to think if there's maybe one more name that we could consider. Oh, you know what? Hold on, because you bring it up well. I think maybe again, this is a case where I think the middle years of his career really would carry his numbers. But I think he's fine to be like our 6th or 7th guy I mentioned. But Le'Veon Bell had on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Le'Veon Bell would have been. Again, it's so weird because when you talk about the running back position, you talk about guys that have just broken down in certain points of their career, right? The style of running has to change from year in to year out. And that's what really made, the guys like Barry Sanders amazing in their time and Jim Brown too, amazing in their time because they adapted their running style to how their body was basically telling them, hey, listen, we can't make this cut anymore. So let's try and, find a different way to increase that velocity, increase that force. It's different now. Guys, the bodies aren't holding up as well for running backs. I feel like, you're seeing a lot of promising running backs that are having their seasons cut short or their careers cut short because of injuries on that side. I mean, look, David Wilson could have been a really awesome running back for the Giants.
Really could have.
But, that bad. And then too, I mean, I know he was overhyped, but Peyton Hillis could have had a better career. Yep. Toby Gerhart could have had a better NFL career, I think, because he was a monster at Stanford, but it didn't translate well because he went to Minnesota. It didn't translate well. But
what's funny, actually? I thought of one final name that could maybe be, again, a dark horse because he's been in the league a while. I don't know if the production would match. Actually, I don't think the production would match, but just because I need to say his name because he is like one of the running backs that pops in my mind when it comes to guys that it feels like that they've been in the league since the first Bush administration. Giovanni Bernard.
Oh, that's not who I thought you were going with, actually.
Really?
You have another one? I thought you were going Lamar Miller.
You know what?
Yeah, he's not a bad option either. I think, but I mean, I don't know. Like but he's been around for a while. That's the thing. So He might be. And then I mean, I hate to say this, but watch it be Cam Newton. Like there's no law against it.
Yeah,
there's no law against it, right?
Oh, you know what? Hold on. Oh my God. Because he did point out who's the rushing yards leader. He didn't say, there. Hold on. We need to make this list right now. We need to go from the beginning. All right. So the first couple of names we said. So we got Ingram.
Yep.
Ingram was the first name. The second name we brought up was
Alfred Morris. Yep.
We have
and then Melvin Gordon. and then it was Elliott and Henry,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then it was you just brought him up, Gio Bernard.
Yes.
And then Lamar Miller, I said, and then Cam Newton. And you know who I think we're missing too? I mean, again, a guy injuries have just
Le'Veon Bell was
Le'Veon Bell too. A
up.
guy whose injuries have just set up with Todd Gurley.
Right.
Oof.
Oh man,
that's another guy. We got a lot of options here.
And here's the funny thing. So for the people that maybe are just joining recently, so this was the question. Justin asked us, with the retirement of Frank Gore and with Adrian Peterson, now we assume, like, at the moment we do have to say he's out the league because he's, like, it's highly unlikely that AP is gonna get another deal this season. Who's the current rushing leader, assuming AP, like, just taking AP out the equation right now because he's at the very, very end of his career. He's past the twilight zone portion of his career. You could also say.
Yeah.
So these are the names we have for the various reasons, ladies and gentlemen. We have Mark Ingram, been in the league for close to, if not just about a decade. Not necessarily a guy that you would think of as a starter. Not a lot of these guys are for a prolonged period of time, but it's really about a window. Like the point between when me and Rick are going between here is it between the longevity of a guy or a window of time where they really like just racked up the yards. So Ingram is one of those guys for the longevity purpose. Alfred Morris was the next name we brought up because very early on in his career, if you were not watching football or don't remember watching football in the early 2010s, Alfred Morris was like a running back that people wanted as just a pure, like, he just smash mouth workhorse, was the bane of Cowboys fans' existence for a very brief period of time.
Oh, for sure.
At the beginning of his career.
Yeah.
Dude was outstanding. Then we brought up Melvin Gordon and his run because this is where we start to deviate a little bit away from longevity. Still been in the league for a little bit, but really production. And Melvin Gordon has been very productive in his career as a running back. And so then we go to Zeke Elliott, less time, but again, very productive. Derrick Henry, I think, is the very big one here. Like, just in regards of the recent production from him. I wouldn't be surprised if he fell short, but I don't think he could. Like, he's top 3, top 4. He has to be with the.
I would think so. Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
been on the last couple.
He had a 2,000-yard season like a couple years ago. So yeah, he's definitely.
And he was on pace for another one this year too.
Mm-hmm.
So we have him going a little bit back to longevity. We have Giovanni Bernard and Lamar Miller. And then, again, going with production, Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley. And then finally, because a quarterback can be in this discussion, ladies and gentlemen, Cam Newton. So a lot of different names that we've brought up here. And here is the man who asked us the question. So, Justin, we've had a ball of a time. I love this question. I absolutely love this question. So me and Rick have, of course, we only get one guess each here in this one, but we have a total list of. So I don't know if you have like a full list in front of you in terms of the active leaders.
I know the top 3.
You know the top 3. Okay. So I say, Rick, me and Rick will each give one guess. You will tell it, and then when our guesses are done, we will give you all the other guesses that we came up with, and then you give us the answer. Because I think this is just a fun one here to have. So
sounds good to me. The first thing I heard was Cam Newton, so I'm
concerned. Rick, do you want to go with your guess first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go with my guess first. I think so. I think your first guess, Jurgen, our first conversation hit true point. I do. So I'm gonna take a second flyer. My guess is gonna be Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All right. Ezekiel Elliott is the second leading rusher currently in the NFL.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yes.
Close. Hey, Rick, that's really. Hey.
Yeah.
See, now that he said second, I kind of feel like we just need to take a risk on this guy because this is the guy that you risk being the correct answer on this list, Rick. But we got to go with King Henry as our other guess because
this guy. I don't know.
Are you sure?
I don't know.
This is not the final guess, Justin. So hold on.
Well, no, again, because remember what we talked about? We talked about the fact that, like, if it wasn't for his injury this year, he probably would have been up there. But I think longevity is winning out over
Loki.
I think you got to go. I think you got to go with Ingram.
Yeah.
I think you got to go with Mark Ingram here.
I still wouldn't be surprised if it's maybe not number 1, but Derrick Henry, if he's that number 3, I wouldn't be surprised. But you know what? Yeah, I think we'll run with longevity on this one, actually. Yeah. So we're going to resubmit the pick, like the NFL draft. But we're going to go with Mark Ingram as our final guess, Justin, as the current leading rusher.
Mark Ingram with 7,878 yards is the number 1 leading rusher currently
Let's go.
in the NFL. Number 3, in fact, was Derrick Henry. So you guys had the top 3 right there.
There we go.
That's why I couldn't give you more than one guess.
That's fair.
Well, because again, like I said, if it wasn't for the injury that Henry had, he already had 900 yards in how many games? He was on pace to destroy the rushing title. So he would have been, but he got hurt.
All due respect to Jonathan Taylor, but Derrick Henry would have blown him out the wall.
If he had 1,000 yards, on top of what he has now, he actually would still be in second place.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. Well, just by a little bit.
Longevity comes in.
Okay.
That is where longevity comes in. So, boom, we got that one perfectly. So, Rick, hey, we're back on the winning side of trivia. Justin, just so you know the other names that we were considering, just like where our mindset was. So, in terms of other guys with some longevity, we thought of Alfred Morris. Justin, you remember early on in his career, just like all of us, he was an absolute NFC East killer, especially it feels like to the Cowboys. Big reason why Washington won a division title early in the 2010s as well. We also thought of Melvin Gordon in the conversation just because he was pretty productive. Hasn't been in the league as long as guys like Ingram, but still relatively productive for his career to this point. Of course, Zeke was in the conversation, Derrick Henry, Giovanni Bernard, Lamar Miller, Le'Veon Bell, and Todd Gurley, mainly for production because those two at their peak were very good runners. And then Cam Newton, you heard the very tail end because we were considering is Justin screwing with us here and is it actually Cam Newton all along? But definitely not. So we got Justin's trivia question correct, ladies and gentlemen, but we're not done with the games yet because Justin has another one for us that I'm personally excited for. Again, in regards to this stuff, we don't know this in advance. We want to be kept with surprise, so I can't wait for this. We have a fun game of NFL Would You Rather. So, Justin, take it away. I can't wait to see what you got here for us.
Exactly, Rick, you look prepared. So yeah, that's exactly as Rick said. It's really more of an opinion-based game. I'm going to give you some situations that have occurred in the NFL over the last few weeks. You guys got to pick a side. So I'm going to give you the full details on the first one. It's kind of inspired by part of our conversation last week. And the question is, would you rather give up a 2023 first round pick, a 2024 second round pick, 2/3 and a 4th to take a wide receiver in the draft in Chris Olave, or trade 5 spots back and get 2/3 and a 4th to take Jahan Dotson over Olave and Jameson Williams? If people remember, the Saints actually did trade their first round pick next year and second round pick the year after to get a second pick in this year's first round of the NFL draft. They used that pick and packaged it with some late round picks to move up with Washington to take Chris Olave, who a lot of people had as the 3rd or 4th best receiver on their board. Washington obviously had a chance at this player and decided to trade 3 picks, traded their first round pick for a later first round and 3 late round picks in 2/3, 98, 101, and a 4th in 120, and decided to take Jahan Dotson with that pick. So which side would you rather be on?
I mean, I already know my answer.
Go for it.
I do.
Yeah, you can go first.
I'm taking Jahan Dotson. I'm moving down to take Jahan Dotson because it saves me $7 million to move down from 11 to 16. If you look at the rookie structure deals, it saves you a ton of money to do that. And sure, you may be reaching for a receiver, but you pair him with Terry McLaurin and that offensive output. I think it works out really well for them. It's something that I think I would say, all things being equal, reaching for a receiver at 16 is a lot better than reaching for a receiver at 11. Because if you recall, EJ Manuel was, I think, a 16th or 19th overall pick. And so that ended up being a reach. I think 16 is a little more forgivable than 11 for reaching for a guy who's higher up on your board than going for, 11 or going up higher. I mean, Justin, you and I both know this from the Mark Sanchez trade. So, it's a little more forgivable to stay a little lower in the draft than it is to go higher. And I think the cap space wins it out, especially now that these receivers are getting these ridiculous deals. I mean, I love Christian Kirk. I love the deal. But I mean, it is a ridiculous deal when you think about it, monetarily wise. So I would go on Jahan Dotson's side.
Yeah, you're not going to play devil's advocate there before you go. Would you rather have Chris Olave, a guy that people had as a clear first round receiver, or Jahan Dotson, who still had that later, pick? He was projected to go a lot later in the draft.
Well, you know my feelings about Ohio State wide receivers.
Yeah,
I mean, I know the Jets have Garrett Wilson, but I mean, I would not have taken Olave that high, and I'm curious to see what Dotson can do. I would go with the unknown entity in a sense of the Dotson and see how far it can get, and give whatever quarterback I have there another chance and another weapon. So I would go on that side.
Jared, what's your take?
Justin, I think the thing is that, and you're doing an interesting thing here when you mentioned the trade that they make with the Eagles, because that is what got them in position for this. They traded a bunch of future draft capital for two of the three Eagles firsts, trading away their own first as well this year, and they trade up again to get Olave. Like, just when you bring up all the trades, you start to make it a trade tree. And man, Chris Olave has to end up being really, really good for everything you ended up giving up. I know it wasn't necessarily it wasn't directly the picks that they traded from the Eagles, but at the same time, then you made another deal. So it's just
They gave up.
They gave up a lot. Like, they really did give it, because you're combining the deals. I think if you just isolate the specific Washington deal, I think Rick would maybe consider moving more towards Chris Olave, because I think you could stomach the extra couple $1 million that you got to pay for the guy in exchange for the better player on paper. But you mentioned the other trade. I just think, from Washington's perspective, I know you maybe on paper got the worst receiver, but you got a couple assets for getting that receiver. And I think in today's age, like Rick mentions with the money, when you make the full trade of what the Saints did to get to that point, I actually would take the Washington scenario here. So I'd take the risk with Dotson too, because, hey man, these receivers are coming out in full force. You could, if it doesn't work great, you could bite the bullet in another draft or two and maybe get a guy that's even better than both of them with your own pick. So the caliber of receivers is increasing. And I think the margin for error of, if you screw up this season, you can get a guy coming into, the future. And I got to run with that one.
All right. Well, speaking of repaying receivers, I got another one for you guys. Mm-hmm. Now, this one's a little more abstract, so bear with me here. Would you rather pay A.J. Brown $100 million over 4 years, or field Treylon Burks and Robert Woods coming off an ACL?
I'll take this one first, Rick. Personally, I'm paying A.J. Brown for a couple reasons. Number one, I believe in A.J. Brown's wide receiver number one potential. I think from his development when he came into the league to now this point, I think he's developed into a number one caliber receiver. And I think he can really help make the difference for your quarterback as of this moment. I think he can help bring Jalen Hurts up to that next level. I'm not saying to a top 10, top 12 level, but I think he's going to really help Jalen Hurts. My thing is this: Robert Woods is coming off the injury. I know, and trust me, I'm a guy that has brought up the fact that, these torn ACLs are not necessarily the killer that they were in the past. I think we all agree with that. But at the same time, there's a little bit concern for me with Robert Woods, because he wasn't necessarily a number one, number two real guy to begin with. I think the system in LA really made Robert Woods a lot better than what he is. Don't get me wrong. I still think he's a very good receiver. I think he's very skillful. But I think Sean McVay helps make a lot of people look good in that system. Look at what the perception of Jared Goff the season they went to the Super Bowl was, and then when McVay finally got rid of him. And it's night and day. I'm not going to say it's going to be that far of a drop-off, but I think A.J. Brown over Robert Woods, yes. And Treylon Burks, if he was going to a better quarterback, I would maybe give a chance. But he's going to Ryan Tannehill, and Treylon Burks has some drop issues and a couple issues with him coming in. I'm sticking with paying A.J. Brown that kind of money. Plus, again, we give a little bit of context here. I got Devonta Smith on the other side. I got a really good tight end on that team as well. I think if you're Philly with your quarterback on a rookie deal, I take it. I take that chance. I go for A.J. Brown.
Rick?
I disagree with you. And I'll see. My thing is this: if you pay a wide receiver a lot of money in that regard, things start to happen where they start to become, egotistical, and they start to become domineering in a sense. So if you've got A.J. Brown on the hook for a 4-year, $100 million deal, and after this year Tannehill's done, and you give it to Malik Willis, who's got 1 year of experience on the bench, who's then going to have to be tasked with throwing the ball to A.J. Brown enough to coax and satisfy his diva tantrums. I'm looking right at you, Odell Beckham. I think it's a matter of, I would ride with the devil that I don't know in that regard, because I also have Kyle Phillips. I have Kyle Phillips, I have Woods, I have Des Fitzpatrick, and I have Traylon Burks. I have a core of receivers who can help a younger quarterback build himself up in a way. God forbid that Tannehill doesn't stick around and it's left to Willis, this year to run it, because sure as hell ain't going to be Logan Woodside's team. Let's be honest with you. But I think I would chance it, because again, I have considerable issues with paying guys a ton of money, based upon the fact that anytime that I've seen guys get paid a lot of money, their production just declines, because their mindset is, I've already got my money and I can just, sit out the season, or I can just, play one game, or I can just, not go as hard as I usually do. Looking at you, Ryan Fitzpatrick. So, it's a matter of just, I feel like for me, I'd ride with the devil that I don't know. I would ride with rookies, and I would ride with the fact that I've got Derrick Henry and Austin Hooper, and I've got a lot more weapons I can utilize in that regard than paying A.J. Brown a considerable amount of money to be on the hook for him if something were to happen, or if, he ends up being like an Antonio Brown-esque type of player. So I'd go with the rookies.
Interesting choices, guys. Now, I have to say, you guys have been excellent with my transitions, because not only have the Rams been brought up, but also Odell Beckham Jr. And as a Rams personnel employee, if you had the choice, what would you rather have? Allen Robinson coming off a bad year, or Odell coming off the ACL?
Ooh.
That's a rough one, huh? How about you, Rick?
I'll start with it. Bad years to me can always just be flukes based upon the system that you're in. I think it's not really a matter of Allen Robinson being a bad player. I just think what it was that it was just a really rough time in Chicago, because that we all knew Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy were leaving. We all kind of knew that Chicago was just disarray. So I feel like a change of scenery is going to help him out, and I think he's a really good player. I mean, Beckham helped, but I can't really trust Beckham to be a helper rather than a guy who, kind of like the last scenario, wants the ball a lot more, because LA's already got an established number one in Cooper Kupp. That's not going to be at all overthrown.
Well, even Cooper Kupp has said, he's nowhere without his receiving core. And I mean, you gotta take into account Van Jefferson stretching the field there, and Odell did a ton for him when Robert Woods went down. So as that route running, catch everything kind of guy.
It's something
that he's going to need in assistance. And yeah, you're talking about a number two receiver there. But you have to. It's really about what they bring to the table, and does Allen Robinson bring that catch everything, not necessarily a separation guy, but a good route runner, catch everything that's thrown in his direction kind of play. And Allen Robinson is that big red zone, end zone target that he can stretch the field as well, but he's not necessarily. I don't see him as that route running type of guy. I see him as the guy that's an end zone guy. Like, hey, if you need that big catch, 10 yards down the field, whatever it is, Allen Robinson can get that for you. He'll go up and get it over anyone.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is that I want the guy, if all things are being equal, I want the guy who is hungry to come back after a bad year than a guy who you don't know if the ACL is fully healed yet, and there's other character questions that could come into play. Look, Odell was on his best behavior in LA because of the whole Cleveland disaster, but who's to say that continues? I'd rather bring in a guy who I know can be a consistent ball catcher who's not going to give me any of those issues. So I would much rather, in that sense, go with Allen Robinson over Odell Beckham.
So by my podcast history, I have to go with Allen Robinson, because I've been saying for a long time, I have done the catchphrase several times in the same cadence, free Allen Robinson, dang it. Anyone that's ever watched me on several podcasts would know that is like almost a tagline for me. because so many times Allen Robinson has come up in conversation when I've talked football. And I have said time and time and time again, this man's quarterbacks have been, but not limited to, Blake Bortles, Mitch Trubisky, Big Richard Nick Foles, rookie Justin Fields. All due respect to Justin Fields, but, rookie. His head coaches have been Matt Nagy and, Doug Marrone, I think, was the coach in Jacksonville for tenure.
Doug Marrone.
Like, the fact that Allen Robinson hasn't had to be checked into a mental asylum after enduring all this, he deserves credit. He really deserves credit. That man has a stronger will than most. That man has a stronger will than me. So I'm going to go with him because I think this is the best head coach he's ever had. This is the best offense he's ever going to be a part of. This is the best quarterback he's ever had. Like, he is going to be so dynamic. Like, the potential that we saw from that one season in Jacksonville, where Randy Moss said during that season, like, I see a lot of myself in Allen Robinson. I don't think that was hyperbole. Of all the guys that Randy Moss has said that about, which is still few and far between, I think Allen Robinson has been the one with the least amount of hyperbole to it. Because I think had he been fully healthy the last couple of years, had he had better quarterbacking play the last couple of years, aka not be a part of Jacksonville and Chicago, like, it would have been
chose Chicago
better. No, he had to, because remember, he got injured and then he signed, and then they franchise tagged him. So this past season wasn't on him, and Chicago was the team that offered him after an injury.
Chose Chicago. He had other choices before he went there.
He was injured, and if they were the ones that gave him the most guaranteed money at that point, it's like,
can't blame it.
But again, at that time, who do you want throwing you the ball? Blake Bortles or Mitchell Trubisky?
Yeah, and at that time, you take the chance on Mitch because we really knew who Blake was.
Right. Yeah, he was the unknown commodity at that point in time. So
and look, to be fair,
it worked.
I'm not. I will never be high on the Mitchell Trubisky bandwagon, but I would take a risk on a young Mitchell Trubisky over a known Blake Bortles. So, and had there been a better head coach there, had it not been Matt Nagy, like maybe Mitch Trubisky could be a little bit better now. Not saying he'd be great. I will never say that, but I think he'd be a little bit better than what he is. So who knows, man? I'd go with Allen Robinson. I will say though, not to necessarily play devil's advocate because I would still pick Allen Robinson here, but I just think the stuff about OBJ has been overblown for a while now, and I think the Rams are more than going to consider bringing him back. And they're not the only team. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to monitor Odell Beckham Jr. if he goes unsigned after. Like, if he goes unsigned, it's not because of locker room issues. It's because teams see an opportunity when they know it, and they will gladly sign him midway through the season when he's close to 100%. Give it a couple weeks. He is back and ready to play. And then you have a fresh player who needs a little bit of time to get back on the field. But if he's ready for the playoff run, and we saw how he performed, we can definitively say Odell Beckham Jr. can become a playoff performer for you because he performed extremely well in the Rams Super Bowl run. And it is no hyperbole to say, had he been healthy for the entire Super Bowl, the Rams would have won that game by far. Like, it wouldn't have been a game down to the final touchdown drive. It wouldn't have. So, because God dang, he torched Eli Apple so bad. It looked like there were scorch marks on the field for a while there. And it continued in the second half. So, at the end of the day, I think Odell isn't necessarily a bad choice. And there is still a possibility he could actually join the Rams. Let's just hope he doesn't, get crypto for his contract for a lot of the payout like he did with this last one. Or Bitcoin, whatever it was. Yeah, well, same thing. But yeah, let's see how it happens there. But I don't think necessarily that Odell would be a bad shout. But I think Allen Robinson, this is the moment he's been waiting for. Allen Robinson, this is your time to shine, man. We've been waiting for this for so many years. And yes, I say we because I've said this for so many years on podcasts. And he's finally free. He's finally free. Oh, tears of joy coming out of my ass.
I just feel bad for Cincinnati, man. Like, and another tangent, but they've been in 3 Super Bowls. They were all close. They lost them all. Like, you feel bad for Cincinnati after a bit, especially the last 2 because they came down to that last possession on both times. It's like, I feel bad for them.
Have they only lost to NFC West teams in the Super Bowl?
Yeah. Yes, they have.
That is the division of death for Cincinnati in the playoffs, apparently.
Niners, and Rams.
Oof.
Yeah.
It was almost Niners 3 straight times. That'd have been crazy.
True. Oh, imagine.
Yeah.
And if they had lost again,
they were a dropped interception away.
That's right. They were.
Can you imagine the difference of Kyle Shanahan, like in how we would feel about him if he had gone to the Super Bowl and they had won it this year? Oh man, that'd be wild.
I'd look at Mike LaFleur and say, "What the hell are you doing, man? Like, come on, weren't you just there? Like, come on,
right?" Oh man, it's a beautiful thing to say the least. But that was our first ever week playing Would You Rather. Justin, you hit it out the park, man. That was amazing.
It was all you guys, man. I just had the questions. You guys knocked him out of the park. So thanks. Thanks for making me look good.
Hey, those are good questions though. Got us thinking, and I can't wait for when we play next week, the week after. We're gonna have a lot of fun here, ladies and gentlemen. We have 3 recurring segments, and our podcast is still not even 2.5 months old. Like we're making strides here, boys. Like I'm proud of us.
We're doing good.
There we go. Speaking of being proud of something that came unexpectedly out of nowhere, the Jets draft. The New York Football Jets. Normally you say that about the Giants, but I feel like saying that about the Jets for some reason. I don't know why. But the New York Jets, ladies and gentlemen, were able to do something that so many people had not realized that they could do, and that's have a really, really good draft. Of course, I do the show with 2 other Jets fans. This is predominantly going to be them for the next however many minutes or so. I'll guess in even 20, 25. But, like I said, last week, we mainly broke down the rest of the teams. There was a brief mention of the Jets, but we kind of not moved on, but we kind of wanted to focus on more of the other teams because I had already planned out that this was going to be its own separate part of a future episode. So, guys, Rick, I'm going to go with you because, you have a little bit more draft experience in terms of seeing the Jets in drafts than Justin does. And I say a very small amount, minuscule. But you are also the one that loves searching up these previous Jets drafts, and you also have had your Jets draft rankings for us last week. So I'm going to start with you. The Jets, Sauce Gardner, number 4. Garrett Wilson at number 10. Trading back for Jermaine Johnson in the first round. 3 first-round picks, and everyone's raving about them all. And then, of course, the rest of them. I'm going to throw it to you first. Just how elated did that Jets draft make you, and how happy were you that they didn't draft Jameson Williams?
This was the best Jets draft overall since 2000, I think, when they got John Abraham, Sean Ellis, Chad Pennington, and then a little 3rd-round gem of a guy. I'm not sure if you heard of him, Lavernius Coles. I mean, he was a pretty awesome player. I was thrilled. I mean, look, I said it last week too. Jameson Williams, he can be a really good player. Like, don't get me wrong, but I think where he landed up fits better for him because he's not going to be expected to be a contributor right away. He might be, but he's not expected to be. Garrett Wilson's got a little bit of an underrated edge to him that I think is really solid, and I'm excited to see what he can do. But yeah, I mean, getting Sauce Gardner, getting Jermaine Johnson, and even the later round picks, Breece Hall is a stud. Loved it. Jeremy Ruckert was a tight end 1 for many of the draft experts. He was the best tight end in the class, and then my personal favorite, Max Mitchell, was just, was just excellent. I thought it was really, really good. I was happy. I was thrilled. I was thrilled because it seemed like the Jets were making picks to make the most sense logically to fill the roster holes that they had with the best talent that was available at the time. And I mean, sure, they have Michael Carter, but it's always good to throw in an extra running back in there because, like we talked about, you never know how long these guys can stay around for. So I think the Jets really did a really good job. And I think there's not one pick that I can say I'm questioning. I mean, if you want to really question a pick, Michael Clemens, but that's their last pick. That was 117. Like, at that point, you're either getting a gem or you're getting the next CFL MVP. So I mean, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day in a sense. I think it just really showed that Joe Douglas was serious about getting this draft right, and Robert Saleh's got incredible weapons on defense now that he can utilize. He's the man, sure, but they're going to be stars, ball hawks. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch them in preseason and also in the beginning of the year. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Rick, I got news for you. All I'm hearing, by the way, at this point is that Michael Clemens is a beast. Out of that first day of rookie camp, they said he's big, he's strong, he is long, loves the game, and they said when he puts the helmet on, he's a different kind of violent player that is going to go after that quarterback and drive him into the ground. I love the draft. I mean, what can you say? The only knock that I'm seeing on certain drafts is that they didn't pick enough players. They had all this draft capital and they only came in with 7 players. Good news here. There's 7 rounds and they came in with 7 players. It seems pretty fine to me. That's what the average team comes away with. And they got top talent in almost every single one of their needs. Mm-hmm. I would say maybe they could have used a linebacker, but I don't hate their linebacking core the way it is now. They needed to get better at a pass rush. They were fine up the middle. They needed to get better over the top. They were the third worst, I think, pass defense last year in the NFL. They were terrible. They had given up a historic amount of yards in like a 3-game stretch against obviously some of the better teams in the NFL, but it's still not an excuse. You shouldn't be giving up history the wrong way like that. So listen, I absolutely am ecstatic about this draft. I'm excited for this year. They do have a really tough schedule coming up. I'm excited to see the order in which they play these guys, because I think that'll have a major effect on it. But it's all about one thing now. It's all about getting on the field.
Absolutely.
Let's
that's
see
all
what the results are.
That's all it's about. And I mean, it's a matter of, you can even have the thing is too, like, I get it. The linebacking core was a significant need for them, but you can get a DN who can drop back and be a linebacker too. Like that, the defensive ends nowadays are all about, just shifting between the two positions. So you can drop a DN back on a 3-4 into a linebacking role. And that might be something that you see a guy like Jermaine Johnson do, or maybe even a Vinny Curry or a Jabari Zuniga. I mean, look, John Franklin Myers was a star last year. He came out, it was a stud. I think that's a really good guy to have, on your defensive core. And I mean, it'll be good to get CJ Mosley back. He's going to be the leader of that linebacking core for sure. So, like you said, I think what they did in free agency and what they added in the draft, I don't see any faults in it. Like you said, now it's all about getting on the field and really all about just like proving it in a way. And look, do I expect some lumps? Sure. I mean, as you said, their schedule is not kind to them at all. I mean, we know for a fact that they've got the AFC North and the NFC North, so they're probably going to be facing Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. That's going to be all sorts of fun. And then they've also got Denver in Denver, so you're going to face Russell Wilson in Mile High, so that's going to be an adventure. And then of course Buffalo, New England, Miami. You've got a really tough division, so it's really just a question of how the question now really becomes: is this like the prove-it year for Zach Wilson? I mean, I know it's only year 2, but the hype from the draft, the hype from the weapons that you have, and the playmakers you've got on offense. I tend to think this is a significant year for Zach Wilson to kind of make that step forward. I really do. I mean, if it doesn't turn out well, we're going to start calling for Mike White in week 5. I mean, maybe, but I don't know.
I hope we don't hit that number again. I mean, listen, as much as Mike White was a sensation last year, I got to see a step forward from Zach Wilson this year, and it's a rough year to guarantee and to beg for this information, but he needs to come out and prove to us that, hey, he's the guy. Because listen, if not, this franchise is not going to be looking for, looking to help you out the next year. It's going to be looking to replace you. And I really don't want to start over again. I'm tired of drafting quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, look, the quarterbacks that are coming out next year are supposedly the best ones in college, but you know where they come from. Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, you know where they come from, so you know my reservations on them. At the same time, the fact of the matter is you can't, I get it. There were quarterbacks that had a year or 2 and then got replaced, but that's not what Zach Wilson. You basically are then giving up and saying, we drafted the wrong quarterback at number 2. And I don't really think you did. I think you drafted basically based on the fact that you couldn't draft Trevor Lawrence, you had to draft Zach Wilson in that regard. I think that was the right call to make, but you can't give up the ship on that end. So I'm hoping. I mean, look, one of the things that I'm really hoping for is that the addition of Garrett Wilson makes Denzel Mims really wake up and realize that he needs to play a lot better and he needs to get his, mind right, because he's the 5th receiver right now. He wasn't when he got drafted, and he's a 5th receiver right now because A, guys are passing him, and B, his behavior and his demeanor has just sucked. So, if I could trade him to the Toronto Argonauts right now, I would, but you got to step up. This is as much as it is make or break for Zach Wilson, it's make or break for Denzel Mims too. It's time. My patience is worn thin, and Baylor's starting to creep up into the non-drafting from at this point. So, yeah.
Check back in a future episode when we get the detailed version of all the schools that Rick doesn't want the Jets to draft from. So from an outside
Queens College number 1.
From an outsider's perspective, I think you guys have hit on a lot of great points. Justin, I really like the fact that when you mentioned that, the Jets, they only picked 7 guys. I'm honestly kind of a fan of, if you think you can forego rounds 5 through 6 and you just want to invest in, especially rounds 3 and 4 for depth picks, why not? Like, I know we love pointing out all the guys that so-and-so was drafted in round 7. Richard Sherman and one more guy from the Legion of Boom were both round 5 picks. I know Brady being in the 6th round is Brady, but those guys are a bit more rare than what we like to sensationalize come draft time. If you give up picks 5 through 6 and the guys picks in rounds 5 through 6 and the guys you end up getting are a Michael Clemens, who you guys have put in detail, Max Mitchell, who all of us fell in love with when we were, going through our mock draft scouting process weeks back, because good Lord, we all discovered the kid during it and he can project to be really, really good. Like, I think the Jets have set themselves up for something interesting here. And this is kind of what I want to pose to you guys. So I still don't think the Jets are going to, obviously the wins are not going to reflect the progress that you want to see. But I think, and this is the thing, this is more the case, I think, in the other sports because the seasons are so much longer. But I think in the NFL, you really wait until 10, 11, I guess in this case 12 weeks because 17-game season now. I think you wait until the season is 3/4 done to go from cheering for your team to win to cheering for specific players to have good games. And though obviously you want to cheer for your team to win, I think this is the season where you just want to see progress. Like, let's be real here. You guys just outlined the tough schedule. You're going to have to face Aaron Rodgers, most likely in Green Bay. You're going to have to face Russell Wilson in Denver. You are also going to have to face, you detailed the AFC North. So depending on when it could be in the season, you might face Deshaun Watson, potentially, depending on when that game is scheduled. You most likely going to face Lamar Jackson, barring another injury. Pittsburgh, who knows what the quarterback situation could be by then. Maybe you're going to see Kenny Pickett in a game. Who knows? Depending on how everything ships up there. Yeah, Joe Burrow. You could see a better Justin Fields come then. You could see a Minnesota Vikings in playoff contention. You could see a Detroit Lions team that is not 0 for whatever by the time you guys face them. Like, you have a very, very interesting group of opponents to face this season where, from my perspective, I don't think, the wins to me are not the number one talent. Obviously, you don't want to be a 2-win team again because this is not a 2-win team roster. I don't think the Jets are well above expectations for that. But I think this is really a season where if the Jets lose one of these games, let's say they lose to the Packers 34-23, but Zach Wilson threw 2 touchdowns in that game and maybe just 1 interception, you guys will take that any day of the week. I think we have now entered the point where the most important thing to get out of these games is just progress. Yes, you want to get the wins, but you want to see Zach Wilson look a lot more comfortable. You want to see him really get better at reading defenses. You want to see Garrett Wilson look good on the NFL, year 1. He's not going to be Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson right off the bat, but you want him to look like a very competent wide receiver and, play his role. You want to see just these young guys on this team show that they really belong. And you want to see Robert Saleh in a year where I think this is finally I think this is his true year 1. I think last year was just a table setter. I think this is the real year 1 for him because there's actually a little bit of a core now. I think from my perspective, if you're the Jets, you want to see the progress, the promise, and the potential of these guys more than anything else at the end of the season, which I know you say that on a year-by-year basis, but I think this is really the year where, for the Jets, the optimism is for the players, individually, not collectively. I think you want to see individually how these guys shake up.
Yeah. I mean, well, speaking of which, as we were speaking about the Jets, by the way, they have officially signed Sauce Gardner to his 4-year, $4 fully guaranteed contract. Yeah, listen, I mean, I don't know about that specific Packers game, Jared, because if they score 2 garbage time touchdowns at the end of the 4th quarter like they were doing last year and padding the stats, I'm not really into that 34-23 loss. But I mean, listen, if you're competitive, if you're staying in the game, as much as I don't want to see them give up a 4th quarter touchdown to take the lead, if they're in the game through the 4th quarter and they take a couple hits on the chin going into the end of this year, yeah, I would be much, much happier than obviously being non-competitive as they were in so many games last year. Listen, it's hard because you want to say there's really nowhere they can go but up. But we got to make sure that they hit on this draft picks. The best drafting teams hit 30% of their draft picks. I don't know which one of these guys is not gonna make the team or is just not gonna turn out into something. Odds are there's at least one of them in there, but I'm begging and I'm praying and listen, maybe they hit. It'd be great if they hit all 7. we'll see. I just can't wait. I can't wait for September. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's optimism, and it's one of those things that is rare for Jets fans to have is optimism, to have a rosy outlook going out of the draft, going into training camp, going into the first days of rookie camp to see that kind of excitement level. And look, yeah, I don't want to see garbage time touchdowns either. I want to see 3 quarters of competition in every game. The fourth quarter, if they're still competitive, great, but I want to see them fight. I don't want to see this team quit. I don't want to see them have another 54-13 loss to New England or a 26-zip shutout in Denver. I don't want to see that. Like, I want to see competition. I want to see a team that is progressing week in and week out. And again, 4-13 last year. I mean, if they're 6-11 this year, I'll accept it. It's not ideal, but again, like you have to understand what you're getting into when you're rooting for teams that have had track records of being not great. Look, you can lean on the fact that you're 1-0 in Super Bowls. That that's great, but the fact of the matter is that was 1969, 1970. Like, we're in 2022. At some point, you're going to want to get back to the promised land again. And it's been 50 plus years of just like, irrelevancy. So,
I don't want to be eliminated in November. That's what it comes down to.
No, I don't want to be eliminated in October.
Let's see meaningful football in December. At least
I'd love that.
That's like a bare minimum for me.
Yeah, I would absolutely love that. I mean, again, it's a matter of how big of a step does this team take? Do I want to see them steal a couple games? Absolutely. But do I want here's my big thing. If this Jets team goes into Seattle, because they have a game this year at Seattle, and they're playing Geno Smith, and he torches them, I want the entire front office fired. I want everybody gone from that team, because there is no way that I'm going to accept Geno Smith being the guy to put my Jets, my beloved Jetropolitans, on a pedestal like that to just destroy them. I don't want to see it.
If that's the case, then we've been moving the wrong direction. I mean, listen, Joe Douglas literally did his best to make Robert Saleh's strength a strength of the New York Jets. He went out and signed Lawson. He drafted Jermaine Johnson. He drafted what's his name that we were just talking about in the 5th round. They still have Quinnen Williams. They went out and signed Solomon Thomas. And they're going to play a Seattle defensive line like that and let Geno Smith torch them. I get that Seattle has good receivers still. If they lose that game, if they get torched in that game, we went the wrong way. This is not working out. See ya. We'll move on. They got some good young talents. Let's see what else we could do.
Like, I still
that
have
would be a horrible game to lose.
I still have an Ike and Poly jersey for that specific reason, that he was the guy that got Geno Smith out of there. So don't make me regret buying that jersey. Please.
You mean you don't already regret it because I don't even think he's in the league anymore?
No, because I look at that jersey fondly and I'm like, that was when Fitzmagic happened, and I was thrilled for a season. The next season sucked, but that one shining moment in time, I was so happy.
Statistically, the best quarterback by a Jet ever.
Yeah. It really speaks volumes.
The guy that was there 2 years.
Yeah, when a nuclear physicist with a Duck Dynasty beard is your best quarterback ever. So, it's not great.
Hey, brain of a Harvard grad, heart of a plumber.
Brain of a Harvard grad, football ability of a D3 grad, I guess, is more along those lines.
Of a CUNY grad. Well, speaking of promise and being hopeful going into a season and what you hope to see out of young players, let's talk about the position that everyone always loves talking about coming after a draft. That's the rookie quarterback sport.
Oh,
so what's up?
Oh, wow.
I said punter.
Yeah, punter. Yeah, of course.
Well, no, that's the real position. That's the real one. But we have to go with big sports media. We have to go with big sports media talks about.
But do you know, by the way, that in the last 5 or 6 drafts, there have been 5 or 6 Pro Bowlers from the 5th through 7th round, and half of them are punters or kickers.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Pat McAfee, you're welcome. That's all I gotta say. That is for the brand effect taking in, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. And hey, who did the Buffalo Bills get in this draft? Punt God. That's all that matters. Punting king.
Yes.
Ravens also got a good punter in the 4th round, which was their best selection by far.
They did, of course. Well, yes.
So moving on from that to the position that big sports media says is the most important to draft, but reality it's kicker and punter. We're going to talk about quarterbacks. Of course, as you know, the birth of what ends up becoming Rick's rants was last week. And Rick, I think, so eloquently put it. And again, if you want it to be, I will not be able to do justice to what he talked about and summarized. But essentially, how the sports media juggernaut failed a lot of these rookie quarterbacks going into the draft, because there was a lot of hype that we could have seen multiple first-round rookies drafted this year, despite it being a weaker class, and we didn't end up seeing that. And now that causes a lot of people to put into doubt what these kids could do at the next level, which really does suck. So the rookie quarterbacks that were drafted, the most notable ones drafted in this draft class in order, we have Kenny Pickett, who went 20th overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the only quarterback drafted in the first round here. Rick, I'm we've made multiple references to this for multiple episodes now, but I think this is the first class since that EJ Manuel year where only one first-round QB was taken.
Yeah, that was a great year for quarterbacks.
Was that the same draft that Eric Fisher was like number 1 overall and like Luke Jokel was in the top 5?
I don't know why we're reliving terrible history like that, but yes, Eric Fisher was number 1, Luke Jokel was number 2. Other highlights included D. Milner, so let's not go any further than that, shall we?
Let's move up. Was that the Brevin Jordan? I don't know if it's not Brevin Jordan. Who was that pass rusher?
Deion Jordan.
Deion Jordan. Was that the same draft?
Yeah, that was the DeAndre Hopkins draft at 27.
Oh my god.
So you know what? Let's just have some fun here for a second here. I'm going to just look at this quickly, just so we all can just relive the glory. So that was EJ Manuel. These are all the quarterbacks that were drafted in that year's draft. Ready? EJ Manuel, Geno Smith. I already hate this draft. Mike Glennon. I hated even more. Matt Barkley. I should just stop right now, right?
He would have been a first-round pick the year before, funny enough.
Yeah, of course. It was Ryan Nassib from Syracuse, Tyler Wilson from Arkansas, Landry Jones from Oklahoma, and then the 4 gems in the 7th round, Brad Sorensen out of Southern Utah, Zach Dysert from Miami of Ohio, BJ Daniels from South Florida, and Sean Renfrey from Duke. So, yeah. Oh, and by the way, only 2 punters were taken. Sam Martin was one of them. He was better than any quarterback in that draft, Sam Martin.
Oh, well, naturally. Come on now.
Of course.
So we are going to have several draft reviews now. I think it needs to happen where we just like go through drafts for like portions of episodes now. Like that was phenomenal. Oh my god, that was amazing.
No, it wasn't. It really truly wasn't.
Hey.
I mean, content-wise, yes, but reliving the whole thing. No.
Read the title. At least it is on my screen. Read the title that I'm pointing to, Rick. We are the sports agents of chaos.
Why does the Mallard Duck have headphones on with the S on them? Like I don't ever understand. Whatever. That's a StreamYard question for another
day. Hey, we're not part of StreamYard's marketing, so you know
that's true.
We should be. But now moving on to the rest of it. Kenny Pickett, 20th overall to the Steelers. Desmond Ridder, 74th overall in the 3rd round to the Atlanta Falcons. No quarterback taken in the 2nd round. Malik Willis going at 86 to the Tennessee Titans. Matt Corral going at 94, still in the 3rd round to the Carolina Panthers. Bailey Zappi, totally going as expected by everybody in the world, to the New England Patriots at 137th overall. And Sam Howell going to the Washington Commanders at 144th overall. Lot to unpack here, certainly. I feel like because I believe Rick had the Steelers as one of his winners last week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about Kenny Pickett last week. Penny Kicken would be an amazing last name for at least a punt.
That's a backyard baseball auto-generated person name, Penny Kicken.
It really is. But moving from that, Kenny Pickett is the lone quarterback drafted, and we kind of spoke a little bit about on what what's going to happen with Pickett and what we could see. I don't think we need to talk too much about him per se, because I think for the most part, him being the lone quarterback you're taking in the 1st round kind of sums it up, that the Steelers took the chance on the one guy and they selected the guy that they feel is going to be leading the franchise going forward. Who knows when he comes in is the question. I think that'll be more of a game to come up with, once we get the full schedules being released. But I think for now, I think the fair assumption should be that Kenny Pickett, I think of all these guys, easily the one we're most likely to see. And I think there's a fair chance we could see Kenny Pickett within the first 6 to 9 games of the regular season, because it all just depends on how Mitch Trubisky goes. I think that's the ultimate. Obviously, that's the ultimate factor. And if Trubisky, he's got to prove me and Rick wrong that he could actually be a pretty dang good quarterback. And if he can, we're going to see Mitchell for a while. But if not, Kenny Pickett would get his number called early, guys. I think for the most part, I think of all these guys, baseline expectation, Kenny Pickett for sure playing at some point this season?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the weird question mark, though, because the Steelers do already have a proven backup in Mason Rudolph. So Pickett's probably going to start third on the depth chart. So if you're going to tell me that Trubisky's not going to be your guy, then I would assume that given the fact that they still have Mason Rudolph on their roster, he's probably going to be next in line. I mean, that would be just my kind of guess in the mindset there. I would almost venture to say you're more likely, I think, this season to see Desmond Ridder play first, just because I don't trust Marcus Mariota. I really don't. And their only other quarterback is Felipe Franks. He's not inspiring confidence in me for any reason. So Pickett's a guy who probably would do well just sitting behind Trubisky and Rudolph for a year, I would think. And I mean, look, it's hard to swallow because, this is a guy who I thought was a really excellent pick for them and is the quarterback of the future. But you gotta remember something. You gotta remember that not all quarterbacks who become the stars that they are started in their rookie season like right away. It just didn't happen. I mean, here's a prime example. Ben Roethlisberger came in 2004 for the Steelers. He was number 3 on the depth chart. I'll steal your trivia question, Justin. Who was number 1 and number 2?
No idea.
I
played enough QB Club 2002 that I should know this. I don't.
So I'll tell you.
I forget if it was a Cordell?
No, he was gone by then. It was former Detroit Lions great Charlie Batch and XFL MVP Tommy Maddox. So again, like Roethlisberger didn't start right away. I mean, he came on eventually, but Maddox started and won the season opener. So I don't think you're going to see Pickett right away. And again, I think that there's 2 quarterbacks that are there that are proven. I think Pickett is fine just to sit behind him. Where I see the first quarterback stopping off is Desmond Ridder, because I don't believe Marcus Mariota is going to be the answer in Atlanta right away. And I think, you'd much rather kind of give him the opportunity, give Ridder the opportunity to show what he can do, because if it's not going to work out, then Atlanta's going to go for a quarterback early in the draft next year. But I think they're the team that's gonna probably get their rookie out there first. He might even start week 1. I'll be honest.
Wow.
I can see Ridder beating Mariota out of training camp. I can see it.
I think realistic possibility. Wow, Justin. So I don't necessarily disagree with the point. I just bring it up because I think, and maybe this is just me just assuming this because it's the usual mindset. But I mean, Pittsburgh, they could end up being different. And like you said, circumstances led to Big Ben ultimately becoming the guy very early in his career. Justin, in regards to that, do you think it's going to be the same? Do you just kind of go over Rick's mindset? Because he does bring up a good point. And Rodgers sat for the first 3 years of his career. Carson Palmer sat his entire first season when he was drafted before he ended up starting for the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, I definitely agree with Rick's point. And I think the thing is like the recent rookie QBs kind of like it sets people's expectations different. Kenny Pickett, I think, could definitely be a guy that does end up sitting in. I mean, if he does, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. But I actually, now that Rick's brought it up, who, Justin, in your opinion, do you think is the most likely of these quarterbacks to end up starting, the earliest?
Well, I do want to disagree with Rick on one thing, and that is the Steelers don't have one proven backup on their roster. They have 2. Mitchell Trubisky has proven to be an excellent backup in Buffalo. And listen, Mason Rudolph has been a good backup for years for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have 2 guys. I like the Mitchell Trubisky signing coming in. I think that he could possibly bring something to this offense that they haven't had in a little while, and that big-bodied, Big Ben type of quarterback that's going to stand in there and throw it out. He does have the ability to run, scramble for yards when he can. But if you're drafting a quarterback this high and you're not sure, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets beaten out in training camp. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen. Maybe Mitch starts a couple games, they're not exactly electric, and they bring him in. But I do expect to see Kenny Pickett at some point this year. As far as the first quarterback, I gotta stick with the NFC South, but I'm gonna go with Matt Corral. I mean, Sam Darnold has not proven anything in that system. Matt Corral has, he's got some things to work on, but he's going to have an entire training camp. I believe the Panthers rookie training camp started yesterday. They're going to get their first real look at him in a Panthers uniform. And if he could start completing some of those mid-range, throws and those down under dumps and let them stretch the back of the field with their speedy receivers. I could see Matt Corral coming in and replacing Sam Darnold by week 1. Again, it has nothing to do with Sam Darnold. I'm a Sam Darnold guy. Like I really like him. I wish him success. He was rough for the Jets, but listen, he seemed like a good guy. I don't see him being their long-term answer. I don't think they see him as their long-term answer. They did get a quarterback that was, in the green room, which means that they were expecting him to go in the first round. Let's see what he's got. I fully support them going after, getting the most they can out of that rookie quarterback. They did address the offensive line. They're getting a healthy McCaffrey back. They have decent receivers. Let's see what he's got.
Again, my thing with Corral from his college time is that he was very electric, but he also took a lot of risks. And so I don't necessarily know if that's a thing that you want to just continue to establish, is that if you have a gunslinger like a Corral who's getting into that Darnold mode of throwing a lot of interceptions in preseason, you might want to just curtail that a bit. I mean, look, he's a very talented player, but interceptions don't translate well into the pro game. They really don't. And your timing has to be perfect. Your judgment calls have to be perfect. And again, Sam Darnold's wasn't, he saw ghosts. I think he's still seeing ghosts. But at the same time, it's a matter of, I can see Corral being the guy. I can see it. I mean,
yeah, I'm not saying he's going to come in and set the world on fire, but you got to look at their situation. And his situation is, am I beating out Sam Darnold? I think the odds of Matt Corral beating out Sam Darnold by week 1 are higher than, Desmond Ridder beating out Marcus Mariota, or Malik Willis beating out Tannehill, or even Kenny Pickett beating out Trubisky. I mean, maybe it's a close second, but I like Matt Corral coming in week 1.
I mean, Bailey Zappi's beating Mac Jones. We know this for a fact.
Well, also pointing out what the difference between Corral and Ridder is also, like, if you have to give the advantage to someone, assuming he's finally healthy, Matt Corral is going to get Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson as his weapons. So that, like,
revamped offensive line, they got a lot there.
Rick, you talked about, like, a young quarterback getting weapons. I'm not saying Desmond Ridder can't beat out Marcus Mariota in any way. Marcus Mariota may end up getting, like, a shoulder stinger, or he could get a punctured lung via a shot, a la Tyrod Taylor, and who knows what happens there. Which, by the way, like, I'm amazed that none of these quarterbacks got drafted to a team that Tyrod Taylor's on, because guaranteed they would have been starting very early in their career. But Corral has a chance here.
So you mean to tell me that you don't see the value in former New York Jet and Idaho State star Chad Hansen for Atlanta? And most improved player of the year, right there. Market. Book it down.
Look, dang it! I'm still waiting on the Falcons to sign Osiris Mitchell, and I'm going to push that until the cows come home. But I think it's an interesting argument. I think it really is going to be up to one of those two guys to get the first start. Maybe it might be even both of them before we end up seeing Pickett. My only thing is, like, the one value I see in Mason Rudolph is that he could end up pissing off Myles Garrett again. He could get Myles Garrett suspended for a couple games. That's the number one value that I see in Mason Rudolph, and getting clobbered by a helmet. Aside from that, I just personally don't see that much in him. But I think Ridder and Corral are the two to really keep an eye on, because if they end up performing, and look, some guys end up just being like training camp and preseason guys, and you get them in the regular season and they're just nothing. But I think the point that Justin made for the Falcons, I think you could also make for the Panthers, where if they don't have a quarterback on this team, they could be in prime contention for a quarterback that comes out next season as well. I think low key. Now it may end up needing a trade up, but like they have the potential to be in play for one of these big name quarterbacks next season. And then that allows you to hit a reset button with the contracts yet again. Now, granted, the kids you have are cheaper. You would really hope that Ridder or Corral could maybe show something. But if not, especially for Carolina, like they could be in position for a guy next year. And I think that is the tantalizing thing when it comes to both teams. It really wouldn't surprise me at the end of the day if both guys get an opportunity within the first half of the season, because I think, especially Atlanta, I think they need to give Ridder a legitimate sample size here to see if there is something there. Because like Marcus Mariota is not the kind of guy that I'm going to sit my rookie quarterback for. And I don't want to even know what my rookie could do. He's just not. Like, it's Marcus Mariota.
Well, that's why I think a lot of these teams that didn't have quarterbacks on the roster signed those 2-year bridge deals instead of those single year. A lot of times when you see quarterbacks coming out, you'll see a veteran quarterback sign there for 1 year as the team saying, all right, this is going to be my guy this year. I'll let the quarterback sit. I'll develop him the way I want to. And then he's got that cushion period where he doesn't come in immediately, make some mistakes, and can't get out of his own way. these teams that signed Mariota for a 2-year deal, Winston for a 2-year deal. Excuse me. They signed Mitchell Trubisky for a 2-year deal. They are hedging their bets, so to speak. They're going to have first-round picks next year, except for the Saints. I don't know why they did that, but they're going to have.
In Ian book, they trust.
Yeah, I guess so. No, but they're going to have room for these guys to be like, hey, I got this rookie. He didn't turn out into anything. We'll see where we are next year. And then they'll have that high draft pick. And especially a team like the Carolina Panthers, they may have a brand new regime. And they'll say, hey, here are the keys. Take us to the promised land. And they get to draft their guy. It's what a lot of people would want, especially with a highly touted defense like that, because their defense was very solid last year.
And an owner that's willing to spend. Like we have seen, Dave Tepper is more than willing to spend money to try to fix the situation there.
Absolutely.
That's something that, as a fan base, at least you got to love that. Even the team's not great. At least the owner is going to be willing to spend the money. We'll see ultimately what ends up there. Now, before we get to the last two quarterbacks, and I don't necessarily mean in chronological order. I mean the two we're going to talk about. Rick, I'm just going to pose this one to you. Justin, if you want to take a bite on this one as well, you can. Why did the New England Patriots spend a draft pick on drafting the next Brian Hoyer?
Listen, the New England Patriots picked Cole Strange. Okay, so I mean, who the hell knows what their plans were?
So you could say thinking. That. So you could say the Bailey Zappi selection wasn't the only Strange pick in this draft.
Wow, Jurgen. I mean, wow. Look. Okay, so I'll tell you this. I think a lot of times when you have a college quarterback who's prolific enough to do what Bailey Zappi did, and his stats in college were off the charts. A lot of times I think a pick like that is more of a defensive pick. It's more of a, let's take him so nobody else takes him and makes him a star, in a way. So I think you're going to see Bailey Zappi just be the third string quarterback, or maybe not even make the roster. He might be like a practice squad player at that point. But at the same time, it's more of a defensively minded choice, because Zappi could go fill in Miami, or could go fill in Buffalo, let's say, if somebody gets hurt, and all of a sudden you have a Tom Brady like scenario for some other team, with how Bailey Zappi can really just fling the ball all over the field. So in that mindset, if that's the way that the pick was made, I'll allow it. But it's just an adventure. It's always an adventure watching the Patriots pick anybody. It really is. And I started the show by dissing New England. I'll just diss it again. Duncan sucks.
We're
so are the Patriots.
We're not the tail end of the show yet, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
we're almost there. We're talking about the final two quarterbacks here. Justin, I'm sure you want to get your Bailey Zappi take in. I'm sure you have a strong hot take about Bailey Zappi, but I think let's be real here. Let's go to the last, at least big name quarterbacks, and what I think could be very intriguing, to say the least here. So Malik Willis, of course, was taken by the Tennessee Titans. He was the third quarterback taken. Sam Howell was taken by the Washington Commanders. Now, here's the thing. Those are most likely, of all the quarterbacks we've spoken about, well, sans Bailey Zappi, like we'll take him out the combo forever. I think those are the two guys that we're at least likely to assume to get playing time. However, here's the thing, and this is the question I'm going to pose to you, Justin. We know Carson Wentz can explode. Let's just be real here. We know Carson Wentz can not do great. And we saw he really melted down at the end of last season for Indianapolis. Ryan Tannehill has already said, and I don't necessarily disagree with him, it's not his job to mentor Malik Willis. He's going out there to try to help the Titans win. But with some of the things he was saying here recently, I'm almost expecting there could be a 2 to 4 week stretch, maybe not 4, maybe a 2 to 3 week stretch where Ryan Tannehill just doesn't play his best football, because I think he might get a little bit too much in his own head. So my question, Justin, this is to you first and then to Rick. Which situation is most likely to see the starter melt down and the rookie could come in earlier than we're thinking? Because I think Malik Willis, on a baseline, I think Malik Willis and Sam Howell, best case scenario, neither of them touch the field this season, except if it's like week 16, 17, 18 in Washington's case, in case they're completely out of it. And same with Tennessee, or if maybe they clinch the playoffs and don't care about positioning, maybe they start Malik Willis at the very end of the regular season, a la what Patrick Mahomes, what the Chiefs did with Mahomes in his rookie year. They had him start in the very, very last game of the season. You saw like he threw like 170-something yards, 1 interception, no touchdowns. Then he throws 50 touchdowns next season. So Malik Willis, there's the expectation, buddy. Not really. But if you had to pick, Justin, which situation do you think would be most likely to see one of the rookies come in because the starter just completely like combustion, like self-destructs?
Well, I do want to say I hate that Tannehill quote because if you listen to the whole thing in the same sentence, he said, "If he can come in and learn from me, that would be a fantastic thing." I get it. He said it weird. It was wrong. He should absolutely want to mentor the kid, but it's not like he came out and was like, "Get this kid off my roster. How dare they take a quarterback?" He's like, "Listen, I'm not going to talk about this kid. He's been here 2 minutes. I have a team that I'd like to win. We were in contention the last few years. I'd like to stay in contention." That being said, I don't think either one of these quarterbacks touched the field this year. Eventually, I think they do, as both of their incumbent quarterbacks that are there are on 1-year deals. They are free agents at the end of the year. I think that both teams will probably be in contention late in the season. Obviously, if Tennessee can keep Derrick Henry healthy, they did work on that offensive line. They tried to get Ryan Tannehill more of a wealth of receivers instead of just that single A.J. Brown. Obviously, the Julio Jones experiment didn't work. I don't see either one of them playing this year. If you want to talk about the best situation, I have to say obviously Tennessee is a better situation. Although I will say Washington's a lot younger than Tennessee is. I could see Washington being good for a longer stretch than Tennessee. I think once Derrick Henry breaks down, their window is obsolete, and they're going to really have to start to rebuild. Their receivers are not young, besides Traylon Burks. Their offensive line is not young. Their defensive line could use some work. So, not to get off topic, but yeah, I don't really see either one of them playing this year, barring injury. So,
Tennessee's quarterback room is also a lot smaller. And I think it's a matter of, again, Ryan Tannehill's right. It's not really his job to mentor a guy, but Malik Willis is going to learn quickly, and I think that's going to put him over Logan Woodside for number 2. And so, yeah, if Tannehill has a bad couple of games here or there, or even if they're losing by a lot, if he throws 4 picks in one game, you're going to see Malik Willis earlier on. Sam Howell might be the most pro-ready quarterback, but I'm going to stick up for my NFC champions here. Y'all keep disrespecting Taylor Heineke and not mentioning him. The pride of Old Dominion. Come on. Exactly. Come on, man. Taylor Heineke is still in that quarterback room in Washington. So, yeah, fine. Carson Wentz might blow up, but you still got Taylor Heineke right there. So, Sam Howell, wait your turn, young man. Heineke is still in the room. That's the biggest thing. And again, the Commanders could be younger, could be better, absolutely. But the quarterback room in Tennessee is just a lot smaller. There's a lot more margin for error. And Tannehill's Tannehill, man. He's gonna get in his own head. He's gonna make mistakes, and he'll have a bad game, and they'll throw Malik Willis in there in garbage time just to see what he can do. And if he does better, then you'll hear calls like, "Oh, start him next week," and they won't. But you'll still hear him. It's just they won't. No, of course not. They won't. I'm sorry, but Mike Vrabel's not gonna do that. Remember, I think there was a time where Tom Brady was day to day, and somebody in New England asked Bill Belichick in a press conference, "Does this mean you're going to start Garoppolo next week?" And he said, "Are you serious? Like, what kind of question is that? Brady's still our starting quarterback. Guy's day to day, okay, but he's still Tom Brady, So,
well, Jimmy, Ryan Tannehill is not Tom Brady. Just throw that out there.
But Malik Willis is not Jimmy Garoppolo as well. If we're playing the word association game here, it's the same kind of concept. Malik Willis has the highest ceiling, like you were pointing out, Justin, but he's still a very raw quarterback. He's still got a long way to go. And I'll be honest, much as I love the school, Liberty's an independent. They weren't really playing any significant competition. They were playing New Mexico State and UConn.
Well, that's why I think you saw Malik Willis fall like that.
Oh, of course. Well, he's also undersized. But I mean, at the same time, it's a much, like I said, the quarterback room is a lot smaller for him to make his way up. I think it makes the most sense that he'll get started over Sam Howell potentially.
Yeah. It's certainly interesting to see what's going to happen with these rookie quarterbacks, particularly in year one. With all them going to situations where we're really not expecting them to start away, but hey, it's happened before. A fluke injury here, guy just plays terribly there. could end up seeing it. May not even be an injury for the first time Marcus Mariota. It could just be he throws 3 interceptions in the game, and Arthur Smith's like, God dang it. Go out there, Des, and we see what happens. Now, but I'm going to put all 3 of us on a little bit of a spot here. This is going to be the final thing that we talk about in the show, and it's going to be quick. Boys, for the future, it could be, let's say, 5 to 7 years from now. Which one of these QBs will prove to be the best quarterback pick from this draft class? Justin.
Bailey Zappi.
Okay, Rick's answer's locked in. Bailey Zappi.
Nope, I'm messing.
Justin, who do you think will be the best QB like 5-7 years down the line?
Well, we'll see. The only one that I really think will actually be in the league is probably Kenny Pickett. I don't see this as a strong quarterback draft. I like Kenny Pickett coming out. But that being said, just toss out a Hail Mary. Let's go Desmond Ridder. I loved his pro style offense. I think he's a high flyer. He's a fairly accurate quarterback. He loves to throw down the field. That's what the Falcons love. They have those big end zone targets now in Kyle Pitts and in Drake London. I'm assuming they're going to draft more receivers and trade for whatever they can get at this point. And, they should be a decent offensive threat this year. I'm excited to see them play. And don't forget Cordero Patterson, 50% of the Atlanta offense is still there as well.
50% of the Atlanta offense, indeed. Rick, best quarterback a couple years down the line from this draft class will be?
It's hard for me to argue against Desmond Ridder. It really is. This is a guy who was an absolute star in college, who is mature, is poised. I mean, the intangibles of the fact that he's, already married, he's got a kid, so he's had to grow up really quickly, I think is really important as well. It's an unknown intangible that you have to throw in when you're that young and you already have started the family in that regard. It's hard for me to argue against him, and he's in a really good spot where he's got Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Chad Hansen, who I will still mark as a weapon, and Cordero Patterson, as Justin mentioned too. I think if I'm talking about a runner-up potentially, I'm gonna go Sam Howell. I think as a potential runner-up, because I think Sam Howell is gonna have enough legs and enough positives to stick with certain teams. So I think he might be a guy that might get moved in like a draft day trade potentially 5 years down the line. But I think he'll be worthy enough to kind of stick around there as a potential too. I mean, look, I love Kenny Pickett, don't get me wrong, but we got to see what happens. He could either be an Andrew Luck and have a great, first few years and then have like a bad injury and then retire in like 10 years, or be a Ryan Leaf and have just 2 years in the league and be done. It's really, you gamble on a first round quarterback like that. I think, his longevity's hopefully there, but I don't know. To me, Ridder was the most pro-ready prospect, I think.
Yeah. It should be interesting to see. I think Sam Howell is definitely you bring up his name there because I think a lot of people forget in the early 2022 mocks right after last year's draft, a lot of people projected Sam to be a second round pick. And now that he drops all the way to the 5th round, it's certainly interesting. Just to be a little bit different from the names that you guys throw out, I don't disagree at all. I think Desmond Ridder, I think, like, if given a proper chance in Atlanta, I think it could be interesting. I think he could prove himself to be a pretty good quarterback. But just to be a little bit different here, I'm actually going to go with Malik Willis because I kind of buy – aside from the draft media hype, I think Malik Willis believed in himself, and every guy should have the belief that they can be a first-round caliber pick. And I think Malik Willis is going to have a chip on his shoulder in Tennessee. And I'm telling you, man, if Ryan Tannehill has a bad stretch of games this season, Malik Willis is going to be chomping at the bit to take over for that team. And who knows? Maybe he comes in and he just provides an amount of electricity right away. And the Titans tell themselves, hey, you know what? We have a new window open because we could go within a cheap quarterback after this season, 3 more years on a really cheap contract because they got him in the 3rd round. Like, that could end up being the case. I would personally love to see. I want all these guys to succeed. We want all of these players to end up succeeding when it comes to, just having a career in some way, shape, or form when it comes to the NFL and securing the bag. And speaking of securing things, ladies and gentlemen, we have secured the very end of this episode here. And I gotta say, bang up job we did, fellas. Really more of a relaxed week compared to some of the recent episodes we've done, especially the last couple. But I think, I like to think we did an amazing job. We debuted a beautiful new game. Rick, once again, is just torching a region of the country. I can't wait to see, him insult the Midwest next week. And overall, we had a fun time breaking down. We had a fun time breaking down some more NFL, which is, name of the game, well, not the name of the show, technically speaking, because we are the Sports Agents of Chaos. But the name of what we do around here, and honestly, guys, it's just going to keep on coming. Per usual, we will be back next week. And what we're going to do, Justin has mentioned this multiple times. schedule comes out next week. I think we're going to have a lot of fun breaking down what the marquee matchups are, primetime games, what the Jets are specifically going to have, of course, is definitely going to be brought up in conversation. We're just going to have fun. That might end up kind of being like this one. It might end up being like 2 weeks worth of episodes in terms of us breaking down the schedule, because I think it's going to be a lot to look at when it comes to teams around the league.
There's going to be a lot of me throwing things around how the Jets schedule is released on Thursday night. It's going to be a lot of me throwing things, basically. Yeah.
Cannot wait for that at all.
Can't wait to see it.
We need that video. We need that video.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
But once again, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot say it enough. But thank you all so much for joining us here on yet another episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. We're having fun with this. We're just here for a grand old time. We're here for a good time. And it looks like we're going to be here for a long time as well if you all keep watching us. Thank you so much for joining us this week. And per usual, we will see you all next time.